So when you buy second-hand chain, it's difficult to know necessarily if you're buying chain that's of great condition. Obviously you look at the surface quality of it. If the galvanizing's falling off and things like that, you know you're probably going to have to do work sandblasting it and then re-galvanizing it. But you can look at the type of chain. So chains come in lots of different grades, so like lifting grade, short link, long link. The long link, there's lots of different versions. This stuff here, if I can show you this is basically L grade anchor chain. So it's the lowest quality spec chain that you can use for lifting, and it's generally what most people use for anchor chain. So hot dip galvanized L grade chain. Now I'll spin the camera around and I'll show you why. There's two main things you want to look at when you're looking at chain. So the first is where it's welded. So it's a loop of steel bent around and welded in this area here, and you can tell it's this area because it's wider than the equivalent side over here. So if it bulges out and it's sort of a nice uniform shape all the way around, you know it's probably going to be a high test chain or a decent quality sort of chain that's had a good weld applied to it. Anchor chain is often welded and x-rayed, or lifting chain is often welded and x-rayed, so they know that every link is spot on. That's the first step. And the second step is you want to look in here. This is where chain wears out, so it's on the inside of each link, because that's where it gets all of its load pulled on it, and that's where the wear happens. So when you buy old chain, measure this area here. If you haven't lost a lot of width, and if the galvanizing's still in okay nick and the weld looks like it's a decent weld, chances are that chain's going to be fine. So this is the chain that we've just bought for Brewpeg. So I know that this is a high test chain. It's come off a boat that was in survey, so it has to be of that spec, and I can tell from a couple of things. The weld is a little bit more beefier than normal L grade chain. It also has this little dimple on this piece, on this link here, which tells me certification numbers and things like that. One of the things that we looked at, so the galvanizing on this is getting pretty shot, so we need to re-galvanize this. The chain itself has not got a lot of wear on it, so I'm really happy with that. As it gets sort of more down towards the end of the chain, so this is the opposite end, you can see the quality goes right down in terms of the galvanizing. The galvanizing is completely garbage at this end of the chain. This is the anchor end, and this is the end that stays in the boat most of the time. This is where chain rusts out. So this needs to be basically sandblasted off and re-galvanized. And this is the chain getting progressively worse and worse as it gets longer and longer and further into the anchor locker. It just obviously sat in an anchor locker. You can see all of this flaky rust. Like, this chain's starting to get really worn. You can see down here it's getting really thin. Further down into this bucket, the links are just awful. So yeah, that's why it's 150 meters of chain, but we only took 60 meters because the rest of it was just starting to get absolutely garbage.